We're going to talk about vision issues today, and that's like your nearsighted, farsighted, astigmatism, that kind of thing. I don't have a tripod yet, so getting this adjusted is a little difficult. Sorry. I'll just hold it. Okay. So, sorry about that. We're going to start out with hypertrophia. So that is farsightedness. And with farsightedness, the way that I can remember it is when you say nearsighted or farsighted, whichever one it is, that's where you can see good. So that means that farsightedness means that you can see far away, it's pretty clear, but close up isn't. That's where you need your bifocals or your reading glasses. Now, when I say bifocals and then I just said that your distance is okay, I know that's a little confusing, but if you're 20/20 distance and you can't see up close, you can still get bifocals, and the top can be a plano, which is no prescription. So that way you don't have to keep, adjusting and, doing this all the time, because you can just move your eye, just like you would if you had both. So, sometimes with the farsightedness, it can be self-corrected, because at reading distance, you start out here, right? Well, if you pull your phone out to here at arm's length, that usually corrects it. And that you can see that a lot when you start talking about the next one, which is presbyopia. And that is when you get older. And if anybody's, probably 35, it says 40, but from my experience, usually starts being an issue, but you don't want to talk about it, if that makes sense. So those folks are the ones that typically hold their phone out really far, because most people aren't going to admit that they have a problem until they absolutely have to. So they're going to, when they can't get their phone any farther, that's when they're going to come to the eye doctor and say, okay, look, what's going on? So the problem with the presbyopia, yeah, Leslie, it's right around the corner, darling. The problem with the presbyopia, if you get LASIK surgery almost always fixes distance, right? So if you get LASIK surgery at 18, let's say, then you see perfect 20/20, maybe even better, 20/15, 20/10. If you see 25, then, I need to, praise you, because I've met about 10 people that can see that well, and it's amazing. But if you get the LASIKs, yeah, it corrects for your distance. But when you start turning 35, 40, and some people get lucky and they don't really start noticing it until about 45, you're still going to lose your near vision. So that surgery you had, yeah, it could still be helping your distance, but no matter what you do, you're going to lose your near vision. And the reason that is because your lens, your normal lens, is soft and pliable. So when you take something and go from near to far, or mid-range to far, or whatever, your lens being pliable can change shapes. It can accommodate, is what it's called. So when your lens starts to age, it isn't pliable anymore. It's rigid. So it can't change. And if it does change, it's definitely not as quick. You'll see people doing this, and then they might get that clear moment after they do that a couple times. But you cannot avoid it. I guess you can avoid it if you have fake lenses, so I guess I'm good. Sorry, Leslie, that's all you, babe. I already got my bifocals. You cannot do anything about it. So, some people have real emotional things, because, you can get Botox to reverse wrinkles. You can get your hair colored to reverse gray. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I'm missing. But that, that you just can't avoid that. You can't easily fix that yourself, right? I don't know what that face is. I can't see it that close. So I tell you, probably 6 to 8 people every single day when I worked in the eye doctor's office would come in, and they're, usually they don't admit it until, like I said, they're about 40, maybe even later. So they come in and they're like having this nervous breakdown because, oh my God, I'm only 40 and I'm going to have bifocals and this is the end of the world and I don't know what to do. So the first 5 people, maybe even 6 people, I was like, yeah, it happens to everybody. It's the age. It's no big deal. Well, by the 7th person of the day, I was just over it, right? You can only hear the same thing so many times. So by that time, they would get the lecture of, look, I've had bifocals since I was 4, so I think you'll be all right. Most of the time they were in shock, so they didn't really have a response. But sometimes they were like, well, that doesn't matter. You're not me. Yeah, I know. Mine are worse than yours. Get over it, right? So I think that's kind of interesting, though, because I had so much experience in the chair before I started on the other side of the chair. So that gave me a very unique set of opinions to try to explain things to them, right? Sometimes they just didn't like it. But, I like to practice tough love, and that's with everybody, not just you guys. So with the presbyopia, like I said, you can do the reading glasses or you can do bifocals. But for those that want to wear contacts, they have multifocal contacts, which is basically like a bifocal. The problem is that the near vision is in the center. So when I tried to wear those, my pupil didn't get large enough to see the distance. So you have here's your near vision, and then everything around that is your far. Well, if your pupil doesn't get big enough to get to that outer layer, you can't see. I mean, it's still a problem. You're nearsighted at that point. So what I did, and a lot of people can use the multifocals. It's just dependent per case, honestly. But what I did, and I really, really liked, was Monovision. So what that is you put a distance in one eye and you put a near in one eye. Now, it can be very, very hard to get used to and learn how to, it's almost like your brain figures out when to turn the other one off, if you will. I think I was more apt to getting used to it because when I would lose a contact, I had to use one eye. So, and that, when I didn't have lenses, so that one would just turn off, right? Whether it was left or right, or it didn't matter, it would just turn off because I couldn't see anything. When that happens, that's really bad eye strain usually. But there was probably a 50-50 of people that liked monovision versus multifocal lenses. So myopia is nearsightedness, and like we went over earlier, that means you can see close, but you can't see anything really far away. If you're driving, you better get glasses, right? So in Marfans, we have a higher rate of being myopic, and I'm honestly not sure why, but the incidence of people having near vision, having issues with that is increasing because the way that people are on electronics and their computer and things like that, it's making it harder for them to accommodate, which, like we were talking earlier, accommodate here to there. So when you look up from your computer, you have to, do that number. Even if you can see far away, as a rule, you've looked at that computer and you've strained your eyes and you've taught them to look close for so long that you run into that problem. So, they recommend, I think it's every 15 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, to look up. And, I know it's very hard to, if you're enthralled in something, to look up and stop and take a break and all that jazz. But it does work. Now, if you have a lot of vision issues, you probably need to do it more than every 15 minutes. But that's a good starting point to try to figure out what you need, right? So, when you have severe myopia, well, let's go back. Mild myopia. So, you can see distance, but not very far, okay? You have a four times more likely to get a detached retina. Those that are moderate to severe myopia, meaning that they just can't see crap from far away, they have a 10 times more likely risk of getting a retinal detachment. And the reason that is because when you're farsighted, your let me think. In anatomy, it's kind of hard to explain. Your eye is shorter or it's longer, right? So without getting into a lot of confusing anatomy, basically what happens is your eye and your squinting and things like that, the different shape is going to close in on now the retina is the back lining of your eye, okay? So it's going to push and change and squish and basically like pop that lining away from where it should be and push it forward. And that's when you get a retina detachment. So the more your eye is squishing that, the more likely you are to get the retinal detachment. So in Marfan's, that is why we're at so much more risk of retinal detachment. Well, and of course, because, everything in your body's tissues, so everything can suck. In case you didn't know that. Let's see here. Symptoms of myopia: squinting, eye strain, headaches, fatigue after looking for long distance. You're focusing on the light in front of your eyes, whereas the other one, the light's focusing behind the retina, sorry. That you probably don't need to know, but that's fine. If it progresses, if it gets worse, then it's rare, but usually leads to blindness. I know we're not talking like, oh, okay, well, I could see this and now I can't see this, or we're not talking about presbyopia. We're talking like a major change, right? And it is hereditary, just like the Marfan's. So if your mom had it, there's a higher likelihood that you will have it. That doesn't mean you will. That you might be hyperopic. I mean, it's kind of just how the cards fall, if you will. So, let's see, astigmatism. That should be one that you guys know pretty well. That's very, very common. Not that the others aren't, but astigmatism is probably more common than either, honestly, because instead of having the perfect shaped eye, it's imperfect. Well, hello, everybody's imperfect at some point, so that's why it's so common, because who has the perfect eye? Well, you might have the perfect shape, but even if you have the perfect shape, you might have other crap going on. So, astigmatism is the irregular shaped cornea, and it's an imperfection in the eye's curvature, okay? It's a refractive error, it's a vision error, and, you can fix it with glasses, contacts, whatever. It's usually called football eye, I think is what they refer to it as. So instead of a globe, you're more like this. So what happens is, from the medical standpoint, when you're on the other side of, so that thing they put in front of you and switch is called a phoropter. Okay. So from my side of it, if you have a round, perfect eye, then you usually have one prescription. Once it starts doing this, then it's easy to think of it in terms of like you have to measure this way and this way. Kind of like measuring a circle versus an oval, if that helps any. Your circumference is different. I don't even know if I'm using the right word because me and math didn't get along. But you get what I'm trying to tell you. So that's when you get your prescription like -2, -250 at 70. And you're like, I have no idea what that means, right? Well, the -2 is your prescription. The -250 is the difference in A and B prescription. Okay? And the axis is where your eye is the flattest. You don't really need to know that. You just need to know that your eye is shaped like a football, and if you're getting contacts, it is much, much more difficult to try to fit because you have to work with 3 different numbers instead of just one. So even in your glasses prescription and your contacts prescription isn't, sometimes it's the same, but often it is not exactly the same because there's a little bit more that goes into fitting contacts. And that has to do with, the shape of your eye and things like that they don't have to worry about with glasses. So when people get astigmatism contacts, they have like a weight. So when basically every time you blink, whether you notice it or not, it has to readjust. So a lot of people have issues with the astigmatism contacts, especially if they've never worn them before, because they're really hard to get used to. And rightfully so. I mean, you're dealing with 3 numbers. The easy way to explain it, you're dealing with 3 numbers instead of 1. So, yeah, it's going to be more difficult. There's the myth of if you read in the dark, your eyes are going to be worse. That's not true. It's a old wives' tale. Or what, if you sit too close to the TV, no. We already went over LASIK. So basically, when you change the shape of your eye at any point, that's when you start getting vision changes, to put it simply. So when I went to the doctor, my new doctor, nobody has been able to tell me why my vision just went to the crapper all in one day. And he explained it because I've had migraines my entire life, and when I have a migraine, I take the palm of my hand and I put it right here, like right here, because that's where it hurts, and push and try to go to sleep. So when I wake up, I can't see anything. Like nothing is clear at all. So what I'm doing there is I'm flattening my eye and changing the prescription. Now, it does come back. It depends on how long I've done it, whether it comes back in a few seconds or a few minutes. But it generally comes back pretty quickly. It does come with pain afterwards because your eye is super sore from doing that. But the big problem was that he told me that I have deadened my nerves by doing that. So I've been pushing on them for so long, for 30 years, that they're like, okay, well, I give up. It must supposed to be like this. Your eye probably should be flat. If you really want it to be that way, since you're pushing on it, okay, I'll let it happen. So it's for me, that was kind of hard news to bear, because that was almost like telling me, hey, you basically ruined your own vision and you're not going to get it back. Sorry. And don't ever push on your eyes again. If you've had a migraine, you know that whatever you have to do to get rid of that pain, it's what you do. And I always say, I don't care if the world ends when I have a migraine. That's how powerful they are, right? They knock you on your ass. So, I'm going to push on my eyes. I still do it every single time. I do use an ice pack instead of my hand. So that does help a little bit. Sorry, I keep getting texts. But the moral of that story, don't push on your eyes. You know, when you're rubbing and you're rubbing really hard and you notice, you stop and it's like, oh, okay, it takes me a few blinks to get my vision back. Well, that's why. Because you've been pushing on it and you've flattened it and your eye has to go back to its normal shape. So I guess geometry is a good thing to know if you're going into the optometry, because optometry is much more focused on vision. Now, that's not to say ophthalmologists don't do it, because they do, but they don't do as in depth, if you will, because that's optometry's baby, is vision. The autorefraction. So I'll just go ahead and go into it on this text because I keep beating around the bush and it is a huge pet peeve. There's a Lens Crafters ad, and I've posted it on here before, and it drives me up the freaking wall. It says, why would you get your eyes checked the old-fashioned way when you can whatever, right? And it drives me insane, okay? What that machine is that they're trying to sell, even though they've named it a different name, it's an autorefractor. And what an autorefractor is a guess. It's a pretty good guess, but it's a guess. Do you hear me? It's a guess. They're telling you that I can go ahead and get my glasses because this machine told me so. Really? No. There's objective and subjective, right? You tell the doctor what you see, or they just say, like with this machine, this is what you see. I don't really care if you agree with me or not, because this is what the machine says, so obviously it's right. No. When you get implants, I've only seen probably a few people that the autorefraction was pretty spot on. For some reason, that usually sends them into outer space with numbers. Like, it'll bring back, like, let's say -9 when you're a -1. So, it's not reliable. It's just not reliable. And let's just say you have a new person doing it, and if they don't center correctly, I mean, right on the money, it's wrong. So now you're going to make me glasses with a wrong prescription. How much sense does that make? Not to mention the fact that you need a dilated eye exam. Optometrists will let you get away with it a lot more than ophthalmologists, because they say, oh, okay, do you care if we dilate you? And a lot of times if people are going back to work, or if it's a sunny day, or if they have to drive, they'll say, no, I'm just going to skip that this time. And they say, oh, okay, cool, because they're worried about selling you glasses. Now, I'm not downing optometry. I'm just saying that you really can't get away with that as quickly at ophthalmology, because they are looking at the health of your eye, and you need to be dilated. Because if you look at your eye, how small that pupil is, when you're shining a light and a microscope in it, you're only going to be able to see, let's say this much. If you dilate, then you can see all the rest of that. So what if you have a detached retina way over here? Well, you didn't dilate it, so no big deal. It is a big deal. It is a very, very, very big deal. And it is a complete myth that you can't drive with your eyes dilated. I was dilated constantly for over a year. I'm talking every single day, all day long. Okay? If I can do it, you can do it. Yeah, you need sunglasses. Okay? Take sunglasses with you. And if you don't take them with you, they supply them. They're not cute, but you can drive. If you have a very detail-oriented job, like my mom's a hairdresser, maybe you shouldn't go back immediately to work because you're not going to be complete focus. Now, your near vision is much more blurry than your distance vision when you're dilated. So, all these myths of I can't do it because, yes, you can. Get over it. Get your eyes dilated. Get your eyes examined properly. Properly. Dilated eye exam. That's why they call it that. So, getting back to the autorefraction. When a patient comes in and they have glasses already, I can measure the glasses like I told you in the last video. These are bifocals, no line bifocals. So you measure here and here. Single vision, you measure in the middle. Trifocals here, here, and here, right? Prisms, like I said, are a lot harder, but that prescription that you just got by measuring them, you put that into the better or worse machine. So instead of starting at 0, you can start at -5, -2 at 170. Well, that's a huge difference from 1 or 0, right? So if you don't have that, you just gotta sit there forever being tortured pretty much, because let's face it, who really is good at that test? If you do have a high prescription and you start out, at let's say 5, it's not going to take as long. If you have a high prescription and you start at 0, I'm not going to know to turn that dial 4 clicks instead of 2. I'm not going to know that. I can't look at you and be like, oh, okay, you have a -5. It's not how it works. So if you have a prescription already, that is great. You need to always take your glasses with you to the eye doctor. I mean, that should be common knowledge, but it isn't. It really, really isn't. I've even had people tell me, oh yeah, I wear glasses every night when I take my contacts out, but I didn't think you needed them. Yes. Yes, we do. Or I wear them every day. I just left them at work. Fantastic. So that's when the autorefraction comes in. That's when the guess comes in. That guess provides you with, depending on the shape of your eye, 1 number or 3 numbers. You plug those numbers in and start there. Same way you did with the glasses. So it takes a lot less time. It takes more time than the glasses because it's a guess. Often, unless it's been a long time since you've been to the eye doctor, and generally if your prescription is that high, you can't get away with that. It's not going to be as long. There's not going to be such a jump in your prescription because it's closer to what your old glasses were, right? So when I say -2, the eye prescriptions are measured in 0.25 diopters, okay? So what that means is if you have a -4 prescription, that's 16 clicks, okay? Plano at 0 is here. That means you need no correction. So it goes this way or this way. So 16 clicks is a -4. So, you think, oh, well, -1 isn't that bad. It's not. But when you think of it as 4 clicks, usually you do it by 2s, but still it's 4 clicks. And when you have a low prescription, you're going to notice each click. Because if I give you a 0.25 and you wear a 0.75, you're going to see it and you're going to be like, I can't see in these. But if I give you like, if you have a 9 and I give you like a 9 and a 950, you're going to tell, but it's not going to be life or death like the other one. So to give you an idea, I was a negative 26.5 without glasses. 26. And I'm not good at math, so I really don't know what that is. It's like 100 and some clicks. So, you know, when I was a phakic, they knew, okay, she doesn't have a lens, so we need to start at like 15. I haven't seen people that high. I've seen one kid that was a phakic like that, and her prescription was really high. And I saw one lady that was negative 10, I believe is what she was. And she actually got LASIK, and it worked really well for her. She was like 32. So she knew, I explained it to her completely, that you're going to have reading glasses still. But that was okay because she had a negative 10. So even if you have to have, you know, readers, or if you have to have bifocals, you still don't have to have a 10. You know, I don't think it corrected it to a plano by any means. It usually doesn't, but it gets pretty close. I don't really recommend LASIK because of, you know, like the presbyopia, like I talked about earlier. You can't avoid that. You can't avoid losing your near vision. And also, I've had so many mandatory eye surgeries that I just can't fathom having a elective one. Now, if I was the girl with the negative 10, I could probably see that a lot more than the negative 1.5. Okay? At that rate, I mean, it's your decision. It's all you. They're going in there to reshape your eye with a laser. Okay? But do remember, you're still going to lose your near vision. You're still going to need readers. And if you're that person that keeps putting it off and saying, okay, I'm good, I don't need it, I'm fine, I'm not losing my near vision, that's just a thing that won't happen to me. Well, you can continue to tell yourself that. However, you're hurting yourself. Your eye strain is going to be worse. Your headaches are going to be worse. Your fatigue is going to be worse. Floaters are going to be worse. Floaters are brought on by many different things, but stress and pressure are two of the things. So the more you stress to try to, okay, what does that say? The more issues you're going to have. So again, I like to practice tough love. So I'm going to tell you, suck it up, buttercup. You know, sad but true. I've had bifocals since I was 4. Just like I told all those people, if you made it to 40, count your blessings. You didn't have bifocals your entire life. And you got to think, in 1990, we didn't have no line bifocals. So I had a big old line right there. Do you think that kids in 2nd grade understood that? No, they didn't understand anything about it. So not only do I have these huge pop bottle glasses, but then I have a huge line going straight across. Get over it. You're in your 40s. You'll be all right. You can wear readers. You can take them on and off. You can get glasses. And you know what? Nowadays, it's very common for people to have several different glasses, even in the same prescription, because it's a fashion statement. I mean, I'm okay with that. If that gets you in the proper prescription, you can get every color. Go for it. I'm all for it. In a different broadcast, I'm going to talk about maintenance of your glasses and coatings and things like that. I'm probably going to include contact insertion and removal, like a tutorial how to do it. So I will go into more of that and the bifocals later. But you know, if you have if you have the line because you've never ever worn glasses, I think that's easier to get used to, because in these no lines, you have to judge, okay, where is this? It's hard enough to get used to bifocals, because when you're going downstairs, I've worn them for, again, I'm bad at math, since I was 4. And I still can't go downstairs without holding on to something. So you can't expect yourself to be like, okay, cool, I just got glasses, no line bifocals, and I'm just going to go down the stairs willy-nilly, fast as ever, not hold on. You're going to get sick or you're going to fall. So I suggest lines. Really, nobody ever takes my advice because of the vanity. So no lines are also called progressives. It progressively moves into the bifocal. Okay, I will go over more of that in detail, and like I said, the coatings, like you can tell, you can see the glare in mine. So I don't have any reflective coating, and I have a very good reason why. And I will tell you all about it. I'm not sure when I'll do that broadcast, but it'll probably be soon. So as soon as I can get a volunteer to let me do insertion and removal of contacts. So until then,